I'm Michelle Bogan, founder and CEO of Equity at Work, and this is your DEI Minute, your go-to podcast for leaders looking to navigate the ever-evolving landscape of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. Whether you're just starting out with DEI or looking to sustain your long-term successes, each episode will provide you with actions you can take to move DEI forward at your organization, all in 15 minutes or less. In this episode, I'd like to share some recent data that shows that employee demand for DEI is at an all-time high. And I think this is really important information for everyone to be aware of because there's been so much about DEI in the news in the U.S. Recently, we've currently, got a lot of changes coming through the new administration related to DEI in the federal government. And, I'm assuming that's going to have a ripple effect out into private industry. But wanted to make sure everyone's aware that while some of those movements may be happening at a high level from a federal standpoint, employees are still really asking for a lot related to DEI, and employers are absolutely reaping the benefits. So I'd like to take you through a few different sources of data that have come out in research from the last couple of months. The first is from Edelman, who does a great trust barometer. They're a wonderful research organization. And a few months ago, they did a study to measure the demand for DEI programs across employees, looking at it across racial lines, gender, income, age, and political affiliation. And even as a DEI practitioner, even I was pretty blown away by how positive this research was. It can be really easy to get caught up in a lot of the naysaying and negativity that can, pop up in, certain news media and so forth. And we've seen this, be so well received within organizations with our client work, but it was wonderful to see some research that was so broad across organizations that really said the same. So what I found so fascinating about this was across every line, across race, across gender, across political affiliation, age, and income level, employee demand for diversity programs is back to the same high that it was in 2020. So the research question that was posed by Edelman is whether or not the respondent would agree with the statement that an inclusive work culture with a well-supported diversity program is critical to attracting and retaining me as an employee. And across all lines, though there was an increase in a significant percentage point increase in agreeing with that statement. So across political affiliation, it was up for Republicans, for Democrats, and independents by over 5 percentage points compared to 2 years ago. For gender, it was up by 6 percentage points for men, 11 percentage points for women. Across all age groups, up significantly. Across all income levels, up significantly. And actually, the most significant increase was in the lowest income bracket of the survey, up 13 percentage points, which is really significant. And same across racial lines, up 6 percentage points for white and Asian American, Hawaiian Pacific Islanders, up 9 percentage points for Black employees, and up 16 percentage points for Hispanic. Overall, back to the same level as in 2020. Really, what this is saying is employees feel like more DEI initiatives foster increased belonging, and it makes them much more likely to recommend their employer to family and friends, particularly those in the same communities as them. In addition, 76% of respondents feel diverse workforces connect and build trust with customers and communities more effectively. And we certainly see this in our work with our clients. But again, to have a great quantitative measure by an independent firm confirming that is really wonderful news. So regardless of what you're hearing out in, the media and in the political realm, employees see a lot of benefit from these programs. They want them, they're asking for them. And I'll share a little bit more research with you that goes deeper on one aspect of that in a minute. On the leader side, we also saw some research coming out from Bridge Partners. They did an inclusion barometer across leaders across industries. These were senior leaders. And the majority of these corporate leaders are continuing to invest in building and enhancing their DEI programs. So I'll share 3 statistics with you here. 79% of those leaders had an existing DEI program in place today. 72% of them are enhancing their DEI programs in the next 24 months, so throughout 2025. And 73% report that DEI is more important now than it was 5 years ago. So again, a big spike over 2020, which while some organizations have been doing DEI work for many, many years, for others, 2020 was really the first time to get into a really deep level of focus there and get programming started, training started, new policies and processes put in place in a more holistic and significant manner. So if you've got 73% of those folks continuing to say that this is even more important than it was then, and 72% planning to enhance their programs over the next year, again, that's in response to employee demand, and it really shows that the benefits case is proving out for them. Another piece of research that we found really interesting is from a partner of ours, Bernadette Davis Communications, which is a public relations firm. They do annual reports to see what kinds of topics related to DEI are coming out there. What are public organizations talking about in their annual reports and to their stockholders and to the analysts and so forth. What was interesting there is there was more mention of DEI commitments, and the depth of the commitment and the information was much more significant than any of the years in the past. And the company commitments for DEI were particularly strong in the following areas: in outreach and hiring, in pay equity, in ERGs, mentoring and listening circles, in professional development, in supplier diversity, and in philanthropy and community outreach. And some of those have been popular for quite some time. So we have, for a number of years, seen a focus on, or an emerging focus on pay equity, for example. We've seen people doing a lot of philanthropy and community outreach, which is wonderful. Of course, there's always a focus on outreach and recruiting and hiring. But what I found really interesting with this was, the continued investment in some of the internal programming that is really looking to build skills, build connections, create inclusion, foster sense of belonging. So ERGs, mentoring, listening circles, professional development. And then with supplier diversity, I think that's an amazing way. That's something that we work with a lot of clients on, of how to help extend your DEI principles out into your broader community and, provide new opportunities for small businesses, for minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, et cetera. So really pleased to see just how broad and deep those commitments are going. And one more piece of data that I want to share. Again, this is back from Edelman with their Trust Barometer. And this really talks about how investing in DEI drives loyalty. And that's really because it demonstrates how much you value your people. DEI programs are, at the end of the day, really focused on providing opportunity for everyone and lifting everyone up, providing lots of ways for people to be successful and reach their full potential to the extent they want to within the workplace. So here they did a survey of ranking among those who say their employer has fewer DEI initiatives, which they said 0 to 7, versus more, which they categorize as 8 to 16. The question was related to, regardless of background, loyalty increases with more of these initiatives. That was the finding. So again, across all the lines I mentioned before, you see significant percentage points increases, indicating that these employees are saying they want to stay working with their organization for many years. So those with more DEI initiatives, the companies that have invested more and provide more programming, more training, more ERGs, more cultural observances, et cetera, consistently are anywhere from 19 percentage points all the way to 32 percentage points higher in employees saying they want to stay working at that organization for many years. That's huge. One of the biggest things that we try to combat through DEI work is turnover, increasing retention, increasing engagement, increasing loyalty. And again, this shows that, that investment has a direct correlation with people wanting to stay for a much longer time in that organization and trusting the organization, feeling like the organization has their best interest at heart. And finally, the other place we're seeing all this prove out is in the benefits cases. And there's been a lot of research over the years to try to quantify what, the impact can be. So we've shared a little bit earlier. We talk a lot about this benefits case in all of our work on our website and in this podcast. Of course, it's impossible to do a direct causation because you've got so many, different factors at play, but there definitely is a correlation between this investment in your DEI work and a number of top and bottom line benefits here. So I'm going to share a few with you that we've seen proven out time and again. And these have been well researched by McKinsey & Company, by Deloitte, by Harvard Business Review, Great Places to Work, et cetera. So I'll share 6 of them with you right now. The first is every 1% increase in gender diversity yields a 3% increase in revenue. I don't know any business that would not jump at the chance to have a great sort of slam dunk way to increase revenue. The top 25% of racially diverse companies are 33% more likely to outperform on EBIT margin. So again, huge financial benefit there. Diverse companies are 1.7 times more likely to be innovation leaders. That innovation is, of course, driving top-line revenue and margin. Diverse teams are 70% more likely to capture new markets. A lot of that comes from innovative thinking and bringing a lot of different perspectives together on, white space opportunities and how to think about different risks related to that. Inclusive workplaces outperform the S&P 500 stock performance by 4 times, which is just incredible. And finally, diverse and inclusive workplaces have 5.4 times higher employee retention. And we've actually seen that in some cases at much higher levels, particularly in an hourly workforce where you typically have very high turnover. Investing in DEI programming and training and policies there really goes a long way in retaining those employees long term. But again, all of this comes from, it's a focus on your people and a willingness to create safe spaces for people with different experiences and backgrounds and perspectives to come together, share ideas, brainstorm, think out of the box, and ultimately break up the groupthink. And that's what's driving those top line revenue and margin gains and helping you significantly in your cost management by reducing your turnover and, of course, improving engagement. So again, it's tempting to just follow some of these headlines that have been out in the news and in coming out of the current administration. And I would just challenge you to make sure you click down a little bit and focus on what your people are really asking for, what's really going to drive their commitment to you, their feeling like, they're valued, their ability to feel like themselves at work and engage. And that's where you're going to get the biggest benefit. Thank you so much. And that's a wrap. I'm Michelle Bogan, and that's your DEI Minute for today. Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, and don't forget to leave us a review. If you ever have questions, please visit our website or send us an email. You can also sign up for our newsletter and follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Links to everything can be found in the episode notes. This episode was produced and edited by Podgrowth with podcast art by our very own Jamie Applegate.